My heart pounded as I watched my cousin from a distance, the cold realization sinking in, betrayal wrapping tighter around my chest. It was like watching a trusted companion stab you in the back, the blood and sting of it more painful than anything I'd ever imagined. I stood there, disbelief clinging to every nerve, as the truth unraveled like some grotesque parade of treachery. My cousin, whom I had grown up with, shared childhood secrets with, was orchestrating my downfall with the cold precision of someone who had long convinced himself he was in the right. It was the ultimate betrayal tucked palpably behind the warmth of every family gathering, every smile. And now, everything was tumbling down around my ears, a chorus of whispers that painted me the fool. This wasn't supposed to happen, not to someone who had always put family first. The frustration bubbled beneath my skin, a familiar sting of anger and sadness at the realization of just how deep his ambition had burrowed, how traitorous ambition could so easily masquerade as familial love. The break room hummed with the low buzz of the refrigerator. It was unsettlingly calm, a stark contrast to the tempest roaring inside me. I perched on the edge of the worn-out couch, the kind where time collects in the form of spilled coffee and faded upholstery. Clenched in my fist was the printout, the series of emails that threatened to dismantle everything I thought was real. It started 2 weeks ago with whispers, offhand comments that made no sense. But now, these cold words on paper, were indisputable. My cousin, Claudia, a figure woven into the fabric of my life, my childhood protector, conspiring with Mark, the coworker I thought I could trust. Each line of the email chain was a step down a spiraling staircase of treachery. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. The faint smell of burnt toast hovered as the microwave timer continued its incessant ticking, mocking my illusion of normalcy. The conversation they'd planned behind my back was there. What to say, what not to say, tailoring my downfall meticulously. Mark's office gossip had been deliberately misleading, Claudia's advice purposefully derailing. How could you do this to me? My voice wavered slightly, but the anger cut through like a sharp blade. Claudia stood by the far wall, a magazine she didn't pretend to read limp in her hands. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting uneven shadows that danced in time with my boiling rage. She didn't flinch. That was the part that stung, her calmness, the practiced indifference. You have to understand, she started, words I now recognized as recycled excuses. But I didn't need understanding. I needed truth. I moved closer, the printout rustling like dry leaves against my side. How long? My voice was quieter now, a dangerous thing creeping behind each syllable. Claudia's silence was louder than any response. Her eyes darted briefly, betraying an internal struggle. That flicker of guilt was fleeting, replaced by a facade of resolute justification. The air grew heavier, charged with an unsaid truth that lurked between us, hot and suffocating. A pause stretched, a taut line nearly snapping. It was necessary, she finally whispered, at last looking directly at me. The weight of her gaze felt like an anchor dragging my heart down to where confusion churned violently with betrayal. With each second, the world outside this room felt more distant, shrinking until only this betrayal, only this moment, remained. The sting of Claudia's betrayal mingled with memories of shared laughter, the bond we once thought unbreakable. Trust shattered like glass, the fragments cutting deep. The realization grounded me as I took a step back, heart clenching as if gripped by icy fingers. There would be a reckoning, I knew. Anger might have ignited this confrontation, but it was clarity fueling the next steps, a fierce, unyielding clarity that refused to be dimmed by their deceit. The moon hangs like a solitary witness above us, casting an anemic glow over the driveway. I feel the moist earth beneath my feet, the damp chill clinging to every exposed surface, but inside, I'm burning. My cousin stands across from me, a familiar silhouette distorted by the shadows and by all I've learned. I step closer, the crunch of gravel under my feet echoing like a prelude to violence. Why, Jason? Why the hell would you do this? My voice is a strange mix, half whisper, half scream. He shifts, eyes darting elsewhere, but he's cornered, nowhere to hide. The truth leaches from him, and I can nearly see it, curling darkly in the air between us. It wasn't supposed to, he starts, his voice fraying at the edges. I didn't think it would. I mean, we're family. We're family. My laughter barks out, a sharp, unexpected intrusion into the tense night. Then how could you have done it? You were the one person I thought I could trust. His lips part, but whatever excuse he fumbles for dies silently. The night stretches, and the void swirls. He's a lousy actor trying to sell me the script of redemption, but I've already seen the ending. You've messed everything up, I say, the words tumbling out raw and jagged. You took everything that was good and pure and twisted it until it broke. And you keep lying. With every word, you dig the knife deeper, and I'm still begging for an explanation that makes sense. He takes a step back, shoulders slumping. I swear, I didn't mean it. The wind picks up, rustling the leaves, whispering secrets that neither of us can hear. I can feel the drums of anger pounding in my chest, each heartbeat screaming for resolution, closure, revenge, anything but the sickening uncertainty. What do you want? He asks, his voice barely a whisper now, choked by the weight of his choices. The words threaten to shatter me. What do I want? I want to rewind time, to a point before the betrayal, when family was an unbreakable bond, not a noose tightening around my neck. I want you to tell me why I ever mattered so little to you, I finally say. My voice is softened, not weak, but bruised by the truth. There's no answer, just the quiet hush of the night. He stands there, more a shadow than a person, stripped of authority and excuses. The silence confirms everything I feared. There were never any answers to begin with. I turn away, unable to look at him anymore, every part of me aching with that deep, personal betrayal. The house looms in front of me, deceptively warm and inviting, a facade that now feels utterly false. As I walk towards it, the bitter anticipation of what's to come pools in my stomach, a fire waiting to ignite. The clinking of silverware cut through the thick air like shards of broken glass. My stomach twisted in knots as I stared at the untouched food on my plate, willing myself to just breathe. Each second felt like an eternity, stretching out impossibly long, as if the world had slowed to a crawl. The light from the chandelier shimmered above us, cold and indifferent, casting long shadows that seemed to move and breathe with their own lives. Then it happened, an almost imperceptible whisper at first, seeping through the gaps in our polite conversation like poison. My sister-in-law, Sarah, leaned closer to my brother, her hushed voice failing to mask the tremor of revelation. Did you hear what they're saying about her? Her eyes flickered briefly towards me, a flash of pity drowned swiftly by curiosity. I felt the room shrink around me, a palpable silent pressure closing in. My father, sitting rigid at the head of the table, cleared his throat, the sound echoing with an authority that demanded attention. What's this all about? His voice was steady, but I caught the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, a precursor to the storm breaking. Ripples of tension spread outward from my chair. A silence settled, thick and suffocating, broken only by the nervous clink of cutlery. Their eyes turned to me, one after another, each gaze a weight pressing down. Is it true? Someone asked, faceless in my panicked haze. I could feel the venom coiling in my gut, words burning like acid on my tongue. Yes, I said, fighting the tears that threatened to break the dam of my composure. Yes, it's true. I was betrayed. As I spoke, anger coated each word like venom, the heat of 100 accusing stares boring into the ruined tapestry of our family dinner. The air crackled with disbelief, a charged stillness broken by a sharp intake of breath from my mother. Her fingers, once wrapped reassuringly around her wine glass, now tightened until her knuckles turned white. How could this happen? Her voice was a whisper, thick with emotion, her eyes searching mine for answers I couldn't give. In the silence that followed, I felt the walls close further, each heartbeat like a hammer against the truth I could no longer hide. The betrayal was no longer mine alone to bear, it was out now, mingling with the sorrow on their faces, the shock reflected in their eyes. I could taste the bitter tang of guilt, of shame, and, beneath it all, a simmering rage smoldering in the pit of my stomach. Nobody moved. The quiet that enveloped the room was both a relief and an accusation. Faces turned away, some in anger, others in denial. We were a fractured tableau, united only by the shared knowledge of my fall from grace. And as I looked around, I realized I was now both accused and accuser, a silent scream trapped in a room filled with echoes of shattered trust. The door clicked shut behind me, a muted sound that seems to reverberate through my bones. I stand there for a moment, just a shadow against the wall, letting the stillness seep into my skin. The quiet of the room is deceptive. It claims peace, yet chaos lingers like an unwelcome guest. My thoughts scramble over each other, uninvited and loud, a cacophony that demands to be heard. The soft light filters through the curtains, casting long shadows that bleed into each other. I sink onto the bed, the springs creaking under my weight, a tiny protest against gravity, against this burden I'm learning to carry. The room smells of faint lavender, a futile attempt to wash away the tension clinging to my limbs. I close my eyes, but the darkness behind my eyelids is no respite. Images, jagged, haunting flicker mercilessly. Her voice, once a beacon, now loops in jagged syllables that slice through my calm. Trust, once a solid foundation, now crumbles, leaving only dust in its wake. I can almost feel it in my hands, slipping through my fingers no matter how tightly I try to hold on. Questions circle, hungry and relentless. How could I have been so blind? Was I always disposable, a pawn in someone else's game? But somewhere in the marrow of this silence, something fragile stirs. A flicker of defiance, bright and insistent. Maybe it is anger at being reduced to ashes, or perhaps the stubborn refusal to let her have the last word. My heart pumps with an unfamiliar rhythm, each beat a vow to rebuild. It's not resolve, not yet, but the embryonic stage of something that might become strength. In the silence, my thoughts are deafening, each one a reminder of the chaos that had unfolded, and a resolve to set things right begins to dawn, hesitant but solidifying. I will not be defined by this betrayal. I refuse to be merely a byproduct of her choices. I reach for the journal on the bedside table, the leather cracked and worn from years of secrets pressed between its pages. The pen feels foreign in my grip, but I welcome the grounding sensation of ink flowing onto paper. This becomes the first step, the admission that allows for change. I write about trust, its fragility and resilience. With every stroke, the room feels less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. Resolve, tentative but determined, begins to weave itself through me, through my doubts and fears. It's the start of something unnamed and unformed, a whisper of strength yet to be born. I breathe deeply, exhaling the stale bitterness, letting the air taste of possibility once again. As I close the journal, a sliver of golden light breaks through the gap in the curtains, warming my face. It feels like a promise, this sunrise after nights of storm. And for the first time, I find myself daring to believe that maybe, just maybe, I can begin again. The cafe smelled of freshly ground beans, that warm earthy aroma wrapping around us like a blanket. I watched the steam rise from my mug, hypnotized by the swirling tendrils as I waited. My heart thudded with a steady rhythm, an unwanted reminder of how desperately I needed this meeting. Across the table, my confidant, Sarah, leaned in, eyes shadowed with genuine concern. Her presence was a balm, a tether to reality when everything felt like it was unraveling. "I'm glad you called," she said, her voice low, understanding. "Tell me everything. Don't hold back." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my next words press heavy on my chest. "Work is a mess. Someone set me up, Sarah. I can almost see the threads, but they're tangled. And my family, it's like they think I paused, the word traitor hanging silent in the air. Sarah nodded, not rushing me. Her patience was steady, like she could weather any storm on her own terms. "Let's start with the job. Do you have any allies there? Anyone who could back your story?" "No," I admitted, bitterness curling around the word. "The betrayal runs deep. But I can't just let it slide. Not anymore." For the first time, discussing my options, I felt like I wasn't spiraling. I was steering. My voice found a sliver of confidence, the realization landing like a lifeline between us. "Good," Sarah said, her eyes catching mine with an energy that felt contagious. "If you can't trust anyone there, build your support elsewhere. Document everything. Make it hard for them to bury the truth." Her advice was practical, and for the first time in days, I felt a plan coalesce. Like I was piecing together a map from shredded fragments. My family, they'd come later, one thing at a time. "What about your folks? Can we approach this from another angle?" she pressed, unafraid of the complexity of my tangled knot of problems. "They see what they want to see," I replied, regret simmering beneath my skin. "But maybe if I can prove what's happening, if I show them." She nodded again, her belief in me a steady pulse. "Then let's build it up. You're already thinking ahead, and that's huge." Her words were like bricks, building a foundation beneath my shaky resolve. I imagined those moments where clarity breaks the surface and the path forward glints with promise. We sketched ideas, ways to buffer the next moves, both of us knowing it would take everything we had. Yet beneath our careful plans and encouragement, a seed took root, hope, tentative but alive. As the afternoon light waned, shadows lengthening around us, we prepared to leave. I wrapped my coat around shoulders still heavy, but now with the promise of something tangible. Justice seemed distant, but not unreachable. Sarah squeezed my hand firmly, strength in her grip, a silent promise held between us. A promise that this was just the beginning. No more hiding in shadows, you're facing the consequences of your actions right here, right now. I hear the words leaving my mouth, and the room seems to draw a collective breath, the air snapping cold between us. The office hums with the tension of a dozen still bodies around us, but all I see is her. The orchestrator of my unraveling, Miranda, standing by the window with what she probably considers a composed expression, though I can see the twitch in her jaw, the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. I hadn't planned for a crowd when I stormed in here. Somehow, I imagined this confrontation as just the two of us, the truth boiling between us until there was no room for deception. But now, with my colleagues frozen in place, keyboards silent, mugs halfway to lips, there's an added weight, a sense that the confrontation has already spun into something inevitable. She smirks, but it's a brittle thing, like dried leaves threatening to crack under pressure. I don't know what you're talking about, Miranda says, voice smooth, dripping with feigned innocence. A laugh bursts out of me, harsh and cutting like shards of glass. It's a sound I don't quite recognize as my own, but it feels liberating. Oh, come on, Miranda. The anonymous complaints, the sabotage, ring any bells? Or did you already forget about last week's meeting? I step closer, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum, synchronized with the indignant fire blazing at my back. I feel every eye in the room tracing our interaction, an unspoken jury holding its breath for the coming verdict. We all know it's you. How long did you think you could keep this up without a slip? Her confidence wavers for the briefest of seconds, and then she shrugs, a casual dismissal that fuels my resolve rather than diminishes it. Yes, I reported you. But you brought it on yourself. If you'd only. No more excuses, I cut her off. The power in my voice surprises even me. It's steady, unyielding. I feel the remnants of previous fear and doubt melting away, replaced by something raw, something fiercely determined. You wanted me out of the way, and you used every trick to make it happen. But guess what? It backfired. Our work culture sees more than it hears. They know the real story now. Around us, whispers ripple like wind through leaves, and I can feel the shift. Miranda's faux serenity shivers under the weight of my words, the lie weaved so meticulously beginning to unravel. The supervisor, previously a silent figure in the corner, steps forward, clipboard clutched like a gavel in his hands. His voice, when it comes, is low but firm, carrying the authority of unspoken understanding. We'll be addressing this, Miranda. Expect a call from HR. She pales slightly, and I see the fight leach slowly from her stance. I know this isn't the end, but in this moment, something within me aligns. It's more than just surviving the labyrinth of workplace betrayal, it's reclaiming my space, my dignity, and finally, facing forward. Stepping through the creaky threshold, I felt the silence press against my skin like an invisible hand, thick and expectant. The air was dense with anticipation, an invisible tightrope we all seemed to be walking on. Faces poised like storm clouds, angrily quiet, waiting with the same expectant gaze. I swallowed hard, desperate to find refuge from the storm we were all bracing for. The living room, cluttered with memories, served as our arena. Photographs hung like silent witnesses, capturing happier times now distorted by the crackling tension between us. We all took our places, a tableau vivant where every slight movement amplified the quiet discontent. My father sat rigid, fist resting on his knees as if holding on to the last remnants of his composure. My mother, usually the peacemaker, looked between us with eyes that plead and demanded in one conflicted gaze. All right, I began, my voice cracking against the oppressive silence. We need to talk about what happened. No more sweeping things under the rug. There was a shift, a collective flinch at the truth we were about to unveil. It seemed everyone found an unusual interest in the patterns on the floor, the dull geometric shapes absorbing the blow of unspoken words. My sister glanced at me, her eyes a mixture of fear and hope that perhaps this time would be different. You're right, my mother spoke, her voice soft but carrying the weight of years unsaid. We can't just pretend nothing happened anymore. My father's jaw tensed. The set of his shoulders told me this wouldn't be easy. What's done is done, he shot back, the words sharp, a defense mechanism powered by old hurt. Anger flared in my chest, hot and bright. It doesn't have to be done, I insisted, voice rising like a cresting wave. We can face it together, change it. The silence that followed was heavy, but I watched something change in their eyes. An understanding flickered, subtle yet unmistakable, weaving through the space between us. Anger, sorrow, and a flickering will to men flowed through our family, mixing with the tears that blurred my vision. We should start by listening to each other, my sister ventured, her voice brittle but courageous. My father exhaled sharply, a bitter laugh escaping him. You think that'll fix it? Just talking. Maybe it won't, but it's a start, I answered, softer now. The resistance in my father's gaze relented, if only slightly, and for that moment, there was the tiniest flicker of possibility. I guess, my mother murmured, conviction growing stronger in her voice. We owe it to ourselves to try. We sat there, an ensemble of damaged hearts seeking the same uncertain hope, each motivated by a shared, tacit agreement to rebuild. As difficult as it was to see through the tears and tension, for a brief, fragile moment, there was a feeling of moving forward. Not quite trust yet, but maybe, just maybe, the first step toward unconditional love. The evening air feels crisp against my skin as I open the window, inviting the cool breeze to mingle with the lingering warmth of the old family house. The sense of damp earth and newly budding leaves drift in, a gentle reminder of things renewed. I sit back in the creaky wooden chair that has weathered time just like everything else in this place, stronger for the storms it's borne witness to. Silence follows me here, a companion made familiar through the chaos now past. I glance at the faded photographs lining the walls, faces both young and old speaking their silent stories, each one a testament to the lineage of resilience I belong to. I think about how it all started with that single, vicious betrayal, an attempted theft of not just my work, but everything I built, a life, a career, a name. Betrayal doesn't just steal your trust, it reconfigures your soul around a jagged piece of hurt. A creak of the door snaps me back, revealing my dad slipping silently inside. He leans in the doorway, arms folded, that typical half-smile tugging at the corner of his lips, a lifeline I clung to more times than I care to admit. Thinking again, he prods gently. I nod, grateful that words aren't always necessary. We've had enough talks, enough poring over details like surgeons over a troubled past. I lost and found so much, I say quietly, more to myself than to him. But the battle scarred me with truths more valuable than anything they tried to take. His presence emanates warmth as he steps toward me, his hand clapping gently on my shoulder. Truths worth keeping, he replies, understanding etched in his eyes. We stand there, a shared moment, an acknowledgement of the trials we've walked through and the bonds they forged. I reflect on what's truly been revealed through the tumultuous recent past, the unyielding strength of our clan when darkness covered our shared sky. They tried to isolate me, strip me of my dignity, but instead, they illuminated the powerful silhouettes of family, proving that each shadow stretched long and strong, reaching out for one another. Vindication in the professional realm was sweet, yes, a fiery beacon of justice found, but it pales next to the personal manifesto of standing stronger beside this tribe of mine. They taught me that value lies not in what's held in hands, but what's embraced in hearts. As night tempers the sky to a deep velvet and stars begin their cautious twinkle, I feel the weight of contentment settle over me. There's a calm resolution in accepting that battles leave scars, that healing plants seeds of new beginnings. I've walked through fire and come alive, whole and heartened, with truths only whispered in the quiet of night. My father squeezes my shoulder once more before stepping back, letting the door click shut with a softness that speaks volumes. I gaze out at the night again, breathing in, knowing this peace is earned, savored, and steadfast. As ever, resilient. The screen door creaked slightly as I stepped out onto the porch. The late afternoon sun draped everything in a lazy, golden glow, the kind of light that makes you believe in fresh starts, even if just a little. I could hear the chatter and clinking of glasses from the backyard, where laughter bubbled up like a fountain of cautious joy. A year ago, I might not have imagined any of us here, embodying such a fragile sense of unity. Yet, here we were, tangled strands of what had once been brittle connections now woven into something resilient. I paused for a moment, taking in the scene. There was Dad at the grill, prodding burgers with an earnest concentration that somehow translated into love. Mom was a few feet away, setting the table with an excellent care that involved more than just silverware. It was as if she was laying down the groundwork for peace, one place setting at a time. My sister sat on the grass, her head thrown back in laughter at something my brother had said. His mischievous grin shouted down any lingering doubts about past betrayals. I joined them, the unease in my chest slowly loosening its grip. Hey, save some sunshine for me, I teased, sliding down beside my sister. She elbowed me lightly, her smile wide and real, the kind that radiates acceptance conquered from heartache. Someone had to bring the clouds, she quipped, her eyes sparkling. A gentle breeze danced through the trees, rustling memories of broken promises, yet mingled with a whisper of hope. Here, on this patch of green under the forgiving sky, we were finding new ways to look at each other, to talk without trepidation. Healing didn't mean forgetting, and maybe that was okay. Maybe forgiveness was a craft, honed with time and understanding rather than something achieved in a moment. Mom called us to the table. As we settled in, clinking glasses for toasts filled with warmth, I found myself wrapped in gratitude, not just for this moment, but for every stumbling step it had taken us to arrive here. Every awkward conversation, every argument that didn't lead to resolution but instead pushed us toward a new way of listening. Among the laughter and shared glances, I realized we were rebuilding from the ashes, stronger than before. Not perfect by any stretch, still, perfect seemed overrated. What we had was genuine, and that was a foundation I could stand on, even if it wobbled. even if it required daily acts of courage. Dad slid another burger onto a plate, catching my eye. He nodded, hardly more than a gesture, but it felt like a pledge, an unspoken vow to continue this path of rebuilding, one meal, one shared moment at a time. I nodded back, my heart answering with a steady beat, embracing this fragile, beautiful state of mending.